Right. This is exactly 5 o'clock, 5 p.m., 1700 hours as it is called. And we are actually right now live on Facebook. We will just wait for some of our guests to slowly start coming in. And then, of course, I think I owe our audience an explanation as to why we are doing this show at 5 in the afternoon and not at the usual 7 o'clock, which we do for all our Kahani Addas. But this is something special. This show is really something special. So we are doing this at 5 in the afternoon. And what we will do right now is that we will get on to the actual discussion. You have the book right now in front of you. It's A Taste of Time, and that is the book that we'll be discussing today. And our guest today is going to be the author, Mohana Kanjilal, right? So Mohana is already here. I will introduce Mohana in details a little later. But first, let me tell you something about this particular show this evening. So this is once again, what I call is a joint venture between the Kahani Kancheti and Speaking Tiger. In fact, this is the fourth in the series that we are doing. And to tell you a little bit about Speaking Tiger, which is, I think, very important that I tell you about it. Well, Speaking Tiger has been around since 2014. So it's been 7 years in the business. And they primarily publish in English. And their list comprises of fiction, non-fiction, poetry, and drama from South Asia and rest of the world. Importantly, with a strong emphasis on new voices and diversity. Well, among the authors that they have published are celebrated veterans and exciting new names. So the span moves from Nayanthara Sehgal, Jerry Pinto, Upamanyu Chatterjee, Keki Daruwala, Gulzar, and a whole host of writers. And many of their authors have won major literary prizes in South Asia, including the Sahitya Academy and the Crossword Book Award, the Hindu Literature Prize, and so on. Now, one of the key areas of focus of Speaking Tiger is Indian and international literature in translation, into English translation. And among their award-winning translations are fictions and non-fiction by authors such as Lakshmi Bai Tilak, Baburao Bagul, and Daya Pawar in Marathi. They also have Salma Bama and Imayam in Tamil. And there is a long list, including languages that cover is Urdu, which in fact is a book by Sadat Hasan Manto, and Shukumar Rai, and that is by Orunabho Sinha. So that is the rather long list of books that they have. And incidentally, they also have a children's imprint line called Talking Cub. And the Talking Cub was launched in 2015, and their authors include Ruskin Bond, Paro Anand, Bulbul Sharma, Ranjit Lal, Subhadra Sengupta, and Shabnam Milwala, and a number of other such writers. There is another interesting thing that we like to talk about Speaking Tiger. That was in late 2019. They launched Speaking Tiger Classics, that is in line with translations of the Abhangs and Janabai, Sauryabai, and other Marathi women poet saints in the Vachanas of Allama Prabhu and the retelling of Kashmiri folk tales. So it's a rather long repertoire, it's a long list, and Speaking Tiger has been one of the most successful publishers in recent times, and they have been around only for 7 years. And if you see their list on their website, it's really, really very impressive. And Kahani Kancheti, as many of you all know, we are a platform. We are in the business of discussing and deliberating matters concerning art and culture, which includes anything from films to theater to books to poetry. And we keep holding regularly these live shows where we keep inviting guests, and we discuss matters from as diverse as Kaleem Sharafi, the lost Rabindra Sangeet exponent all the way from Bangladesh, to we have done a series on Satyajit Ray as a part of celebrating their centenary, where we have chosen 8 female characters from Ray films and brought them into the scene. And we had one lady to discuss them each Sunday. There'll be more Satyajit Ray centenary celebrations that will be coming up. But today, what we have, and Mohana has been there for quite some time right now. Mohana smiled, right? And here, and this is the book that we are going to talk about. It's called The Test of Time. And if you see the book, my friends, you will see that I have been reading it like I have never read. I don't think the last time I ever read my academic books with such intensity and such detail. You can see it from all these little postage scripts, because I had to keep doing that, do a lot of homework. And the reason of doing a lot of homework was because, like everybody else, and here I may be allowed to be a little parochial, a Bengali, so therefore a foodie. And at some point of time in my career, I had been a writer for reviewing restaurants for Economic Time, but that was a long time back. And funnily, one reason I think I had to stop that particular column every Sunday was because in 1990, I actually ran out of restaurants, right? There weren't enough restaurants in Kolkata in 1990 to be called for a review. But that's one. And the other is, of course, Kolkata, city where we all belong. So what has Mohana done? Now, first of all, a little introduction on Mohana at this point of time before I go to the book. Now, Mohana has been schooled in, major part of the schooling has been in Bangalore. I think it was Bangalore then named Mohana.
Yeah, that's right.
And not Bangalore as it is now fashionable to call it Bangalore. And then she moved to Kolkata, finished her schooling from Modern High, and then went on to graduate from Loreto. She's an alumnus of Loreto House. And then she started writing initially as a freelancer, and she wrote 2 fiction. After having done the 2 fiction, she then said that, okay, now let's get on to something big, and big it is. It is really big. I'm showing you the spine. Where can you see the spine? Yeah, that's it. So that's the spine I'm talking about. Okay, now that's it. It's almost like the complete works of Shakespeare. And believe you me, it is almost like the complete works of Shakespeare, because I tell you what she has done, and this I must tell, and I must bring this to my audience, to our viewers, is that first of all, she has talked about the city history, right from the landing of Job Charnock at what we call Sutanuti and wherever. And then she has talked about the various European influences that happened in the city on the culinary habits in Kolkata, because with the British came the Portuguese and came the Dutch and came the French. And then this whole city became a kind of a culinary melting pot of the Jews, the Chinese, the Parsis, and, and of course the Nawabi cooking, the biryani, of which Calcutta is now becoming more famous than, maybe almost we are at par with Hyderabad. And of course, the 4th chapter, she has focused completely on Bengali cuisine. So that's what it is. And the last has been the pan-Indian cuisine, which is the Marwari, the Darjeeling, the Tibetan, the Sindhis, and other things that. Now, couple of points I want to make. One is that this whole book is extremely concise, and it is such an extremely researched book that once you start reading, you will start reading it like a storybook. It is not just a book, to give you data on who bought what food and what happened. That is there. But other than that, it makes such wonderful reading. That's number one. And the other factor is that she has picked up a lot of nuances, which I must tell you. For instance, she has talked about, she has researched and written about the fact that how a restaurant in Khidirpur called Young Bengal Hotel, which is named after being inspired by Derozio. Now, this is only in Calcutta you can do that. A restaurant inspired by Derozio, the Young Bengal movement. A restaurant is named after him, and they were the first and probably still one of the best places where you get a meal, what is called otherwise in India a thali, which we call is a Bangla meal, like with the dal, bhat, chukto, tarkari, bhaja, and incidentally, the interesting thing is the second part to it, and that is they still paste their masalas by using shil nora, right? And that is, the pestle and the stone. They don't use, ready-made cook me or, MDH. They still use that. Now, that's the speciality. And this is the remarkable thing that Mohana has done, that she has gone deep into that. And another thing that I must talk about is that she has even looked into things like that in the Bengali cuisine. You can classify them into two groups, Sheddo and Makha. So there are the Sheddos, which are the boiled, if the last thing that you can have is Alu Sheddo Bhat. And of course, you have these Makhas, which is another set of. So those are everything she has gone much deep into. Now, having said all that, I'm sure by now you all are impressed about the book, but we will try and impress you even more, because we have a big challenging task in front of us, both for Mohana and me. And we spend hours trying to see that how we can circumvent the challenge. The challenge is, how do we bring and talk about this book in exactly about an hour, right? It is really for us like trying to play a 5-day test with an olden day rest day after the third day. So it's a 6-day test. We are trying to club it into a T20 IPL match. So we thought the best thing we can do to, talk about everything, but not play a 5-day test with a rest day in between, is to perhaps take you through. We have some of the important things which we thought we can chat about. So what we have done is that we have actually gone and put up a PowerPoint presentation. You see, that's the best thing that we could do. And the eyes of the world, meaning me's of the world who come from an advertising background, the best thing we can do, we can't do anything, is to put things in a presentation format. So that's what we have done. And with that presentation format with us, I'm going to do a screen share exercise. And while you all see the pictures and the screen, and that is going to be our cue for moving on from one subject to the other, we will run you through the book today. Mona, that's what we are going to do today, right? Yeah. And please, this is an adda. So this is and one reason somebody had asked me, why did you do it at 5 o'clock today? Because it's a Bikele Chai Adda, and nothing can be better in the Bengali middle class syndrome than Bikele Chai Adda, though the Bengali drinks tea 24/7. Any time of the day is tea time, but Bikele Chai Adda, which I guess, Mohana, may have come from the Britishers, that evening high tea kind of a thing.
Yes,
or did
afternoon
we give it
tea, rather.
afternoon tea, right?
Yes,
4 p.m. So we thought that we will not be able to have the chai radda in real time live because of the pandemic situation. And so we thought that we'll have this at 5 o'clock just to celebrate that Bikele chai radda. Therefore, this show is clubbed at 5 in the evening, right? Okay, so let me bring down the presentation. Give me a minute, and please do keep commenting. We are live right now on Facebook. This show will be available by about 9 o'clock tonight on YouTube. The link will be there on the Kahani Kanchetti page, which will also be there on the Speaking Tiger social media, and you can see it later, or rather you are seeing it right now, but you can tell your friends and others to see it later whenever they have the time. Because I know 5 o'clock is a little bit of an inconvenient time, but we said, no, we must celebrate this Bikele Chai Radda. And to do that, we go straight into the presentation that we have done. This is just a cue sheet for us, I must tell you. It's not exactly a, there we are. Okay, so we are talking about getting down to the book, A Taste of Time. First question, Mohana, how long did it take you to do this research? Because this is yeah.
Roughly around 5 to 6 years.
You mean 5?
Yeah.
You mean you have spent good 5 to 6 years of your life researching this Bengali Kolkata cuisine?
Yes.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Researching, it included taking the photographs. It included everything, Yeah.
Yeah, and incidentally, the book has a lot of very interesting photographs, some of which we have shared in this presentation. So please, when you see the book, please also see the pictures naturally. We can't do one without the other. And again, I must tell you, from Speaking Tiger, an excellently produced book. Even the cover design, everything, the paper, first class, as they say. Okay, so let's go forward. So we start actually from the time that Job Charnock lands in Kolkata, right? Job Charnock lands in Kolkata, and here is the mausoleum churchyard of St. John's Church. How did this start off? How did this spark off, and why have you started with Job Chanok?
Because you see, credit for founding the city of Calcutta has historically been always given to Job Chanok, who was an agent of the British East India Company. And he came to India around 1655-56, and within 2 years he became he was made the junior member of the Council of Qasim Bazar. And from there, he was put in charge of the Patna factory. Qasim Bazar at that point of time was a very prosperous town, and it was a great center of trade. And from there, he was put in charge of the Patna factory, and then again in 1680, he was put in charge of, the Qasim Bazar factory. And later in 1686, he became the agent, British East India Company's agent for all of Bengal. So this is, he had a very important role in Bengal. But you see, while he was there in Murshidabad, what happened is that difficulties, hostilities rather cropped up between the British and the silk weavers and traders of Murshidabad. And that kind of forced him to go and stay in Hooghly. But in Hooghly also, he faced the ire of the Mughal governor of the Sabah of Bengal, that's Subadar Shaista Khan. Because of which he had to retreat again to the village of Sultanutti, which was a very flourishing textile village. And it is here that this was the first time that Job Chanok stayed in Sultanutti, which would later become a very important part of the city of Calcutta. It was while he stayed here, he realized the importance of, or rather the potential of this flourishing textile village. That it had a lot of potential, and it was the very right place to set up the headquarters of the British East India Company. So he then set sail for Madras, where he tried to convince a lot the British officers there posted there about his idea about Sultanutti. And he relentlessly he pursued his proposal of turning Sultanutti into the headquarters of the British East India Company. And ultimately they bowed to his relentless pursuit of this idea of the proposal. And in March 1690, the British, they approached the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb and procured from him the permission to re-establish a factory in Bengal. And so from then, you see this Job Chanok, the agent, he set sail from Madras to Sultanutti. And this is a very historic event in the history of Calcutta, is that he landed near Neemtola Ghat in Sultanutti on 24th August 1690, and he is believed to have hoisted the British flag on the banks of the river Hooghly. And this date is a very historic date because it was considered for more than 300 years to be the birthday of Calcutta.
Now, Mohana, one question here. While we know this 24th is the birthday, and we just recently, sometime back in 1990, we did that big tamasha of the 300 years of birthday of Kolkata. But in your book, you have mentioned that there was a legal issue with this so-called birthday. And the birthday the court sort of did not quite agree to this birthday cake being cut and being celebrated. Am I right? Have I got it right?
Yeah, because in 2003, what happened, the Calcutta High Court, they, based on the findings of an expert committee of, 5 eminent historians, the Calcutta High Court passed the ruling or ruled that, Calcutta cannot have an official birthday, because the entire city developed as a process of rural settlement, as a general and long process of rural settlement, clusters of which, became part of the company trading factory in the last decade of the 17th century, and ultimately grew into the town in the 18th century. So it cannot have a single birthday. It was a long and general process, and secondly, they also said one single person cannot be given the credit for finding the city or cannot be called the founder of Calcutta. So, because in addition to Job Chanok, there were many other people who contributed to the development of the city or formation of the city. And that included Charles Eyre, who was his son-in-law and successor. Yeah.
But this court judgment, I think, came after the birthday was over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good thing, because by then the Bengalis and Kolkatans had gone to town. They had done all the celebration. they even got Satyajit Ray to do a special logo on occasion of the 300 years of Kolkata. And the agency that I work for, we prepared a series of ads in Kolkata and took it to our clients and said that, please release one to celebrate the birthday of Calcutta. And a lot of them did. But except that, which is why I'm saying, thankfully, this judgment came after the celebration was over. Otherwise,
Yeah,
all
this
this
is now known as the Calcutta birthday case.
But Calcutta birthday case,
Birthday
okay,
case, yes.
from the birthday cake to the birthday case. Now, when we are talking about the Brits, I suppose one of the things they brought in was cha, tea. I mean,
Yeah,
tea
definitely.
was yeah.
Definitely.
And with the tea, I suppose what grew was a series of these. And I think we are looking at the favorite cabinet. And this is a landmark. This is an iconic. This is a historical place in the city of Kolkata. Right?
Right.
So, and this is where the chai adda is probably happening right now.
Right.
And anytime you go, they are having a chai adda. Am I right? And so the
Right.
so chai became not chai. Cha became a very popular kind of a recipe, a drink or a obsession or whatever you call it in the city of
With the
Kolkata.
Bengalis are really, they love tea more than I would say coffee. Of course, there are lovers of coffee among the Bengalis, but they love tea more, I think.
They love tea more. And I think what they love with the tea is this. This is the tea and a command. Look at this. I'm really salivating. And I hope everybody else who is watching this, they are also salivating that this is the kind of, the tea we want. And there is Makhon Pauruti and there is Golmorich and, the thin arrowroot biscuit, cake, patties, cha, aha. But I tell you, in Shivram Chakraborty's Bali Theke Paliye, this business of, buttered toast with an option of either sugar or pepper.
And with sugar, yeah, dusted with pepper, black pepper.
Dusted with pepper. So
Yeah.
there is this character, he actually comes to Kolkata, he walks into a store without any money and the fellow says, ki debo, bread, butter, ha, thou. And then he said, chini debo na morish debo. The poor fellow not understanding said, dutoi dao. I still remember when we were young, we read Bali Theke Pali and this dutoi dao. And thereafter, when I actually started visiting the first time, I think I had this Makhon Pauru tea, I told the fellow dutoi dao. That was, I think, a tribute to Shivram Chakraborty's Bali Theke Pali. All right. So we have talked about the Bengali tea, the Bengali restaurant, and favorite cabin, of course, is historical. Many of us know, read about it. More importantly, I think one important factor about the tea stalls became, a part and parcel. These tea shops became a part and parcel of the Kolkata's lifestyle, culture, whatever you call it. Okay, so
Yeah.
that would be that. And now I want to talk about something which is very, very Kolkata, very, very Bengali and very, very Kolkata, and that is, of course, the coffee house. But where did this coffee house come from? I mean, how did we arrive at this coffee business? We are not coffee drinkers as such.
Yeah.
So where did we arrive at the coffee?
Our coffee is basically, it started with, if you go to the history of coffee, it was actually brought to India by Baba Budan. By Baba Budan, who, actually, he was a Sufi saint who used to live in Chikmagalur, and he's responsible for introducing coffee into India. And if you're talking about the British, who basically took up the coffee cultivation, and it was under them that coffee, plantations, coffee, they set up many coffee plantations in South India because they felt that the climatic conditions, the soil, everything was very apt for coffee cultivation in those areas. But yeah, and obviously then they set up many coffee houses, and under the British government, they set up many coffee houses, and this is the College Street Coffee House that was set up, which was in Bankim Chatterjee Street. Yeah, and
you have talked about the Malabar, something like that.
Monsoon Malabar.
Malabar.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Monsoon
So
Malabar. Yeah.
For a coffee house, many people know. One thing I wanted to talk about is, that's a very interesting thing that you've picked up, is the Monsoon Malabar. And Monsoon Malabar, not many people know about it, but it is a very exclusive variety of coffee from the Malabar coast of Karnataka and Kerala. Now, what happened is that this variety of coffee, it originated during the British period. And during the British period, it originated in the ships when they were carrying the raw and fertile coffee beans, the green coffee beans. They were carrying this from India to Europe. And this particular variety of coffee, it kind of happened by accident. It was discovered by accident in the British ships that were sailing around the Cape of Good Hope. Because at that point of time, what happened is, you know, the wooden vessels, the ships, they had to sail around the Cape of Good Hope, and the journey was a very long one. It used to take around 6 months. And because of which, you know, this coffee beans, they were often exposed to the winds, the humidity, the rains, which changed the character, which changed the nature of the coffee beans. They converted, you know, from raw fertile coffee beans into aged coffee that was pale yellow in color. And the coffee powder made from these beans, they had a very, you know, musty and pungent flavor, and it developed a very heavy bodied brew, which the Europeans liked very much. They seemed to prefer. Now, but this was before the construction of the Suez Canal. Now, the Suez Canal, when it got constructed, when it opened, actually, the route between it kind of, the route between the journey became much quicker. The journey became much quicker, and as a result of which, the coffee beans were no longer exposed to the rains and the humidity and the drastic climatic conditions which had caused their nature to change so much. And because of this, you know, the coffee that the Europeans started having was the usual coffee. The coffee powder made from these beans, the coffee that they started having was the usual coffee, and it lacked the flavor, the musty flavor, the pungent flavor of the aged coffee, which the Europeans had liked. So they began demanding the aged coffee. And in order to, so that, you know, the coffee cultivators, they realized that since there was a demand for this kind of coffee, which was actually a coffee that was discovered by accident, they began, what should I say, they decided to manually replicate this process of making this type of coffee on the Malabar coast. So they call this entire process as monsooning. They would reproduce the conditions, the climatic conditions faced on the sea. You know, so what they would do, the harvested coffee beans were exposed to the rains, the humidity, and the winds of the Malabar coast, and that caused them to swell in size. They would swell double in size. They would become brittle. They would become pale in color, and the coffee powder made from these beans would be very. They had a very bold and earthy flavor, and this was named the Monsoon Malabar. This type of coffee. And the Monsoon Malabar is very much in demand, let me tell you, among the international coffee brands. They're very much in demand, and they form a very important component of fine espresso coffee blends. And I was very surprised, by the way, to discover Monsoon Malabar in this variety of coffee has been listed, or if you go to the Promenade Lounge in Taj Bengal, which is the tea and coffee lounge in Taj Bengal, you will find this variety of coffee listed on the menu under the beverage section as Indian Age Monsoon Malabar. So, you know, I was doing my research on this, and when it ended, and I just ended, and I happened to see this in the menu, on the menu of Promenade Lounge. I was very happy to see that, actually. This is a variety of coffee not many people know about. It's very exclusive, and it's from India, the Monsoon Malabar.
Well, I think, you know, Mohana, you should now start looking at becoming the brand ambassador for this Monsoon Malabar. and excuse me, by the way, are you thinking of taking up history profession as teaching history as a profession? Because the way you have gone into each of these subjects, you are really a wonderful history teacher, other than writing the book. I mean, I really think so. One more thing, and by the way, before we go any further, here are some comments which I just like to share with our viewers over here. Shravani, of course, also says, now this is what happens when you talk bread butter. She says that she loves toast with sugar and pepper. Yeah. And I guess both. And Moushumi is already drooling. But wait, Moushumi, there'll be more things to do, like we assure you. Sheila has asked, where exactly is favorite cabin?
What is
it? Where is favorite cabin?
Shujushen Street. Shujushen Street.
So you get on to Shialda, cross the flyover, turn left, and there you are, Shujushen Street, which used to be the hub and the hideout of a lot of the freedom fighters between 1900 and 18 to whatever. Right. Okay. Now that we have talked about the beverage part, let's talk about something which is again very, very Bangla. Right. chop cutlet. Here we use the word chop cutlet. Ki ante debo, chop cutlet. And here, of course, what we have in front of us is mutton pantras. Now, tell us something about it. This is by the Borua,
Barua and Dey Fast Food Center.
Baria and Dey.
Barua and Dey Fast Food Center, yeah.
How did Mr. Borua, who was a Mog cook, I guess, the founder, Mr. Borua, how did he get into doing mutton pantra?
See, Nakul Chandra Barua, he was the owner. He actually started this restaurant and this shop, rather, this chops and cutlet shop. And he was a very cook of some renown. He was a cook of some renown in the city. The Mogs are very excellent cooks, by the way. They are an Arakanese tribe from Burma who basically lived in the Chittagong region of undivided Bengal, and they were Buddhist by religion, and they were excellent cooks. So they were employed a lot by the British in the British households, in the kitchens of the British households, companies, and clubs. And this Nakul Chandra Barua, he had many work experiences. Among them, it included a stint at the Great Eastern Hotel. And while he was working at the Great Eastern Hotel, he was, there was a local bridge club in Shambazar in North Calcutta called the Theta Feta Club. And the Theta Feta Club. And yes, and the secretary of the club, he wanted Nakul Chandra Barua to manage the canteen, or to head the canteen of the club. So be the head chef. And so he lured him with a very lucrative job offer, and which he could not resist, I guess. And then he joined him as the head of the canteen in Theta Feta Club. And there, Pantaras is a very, Pantaras is not something that not just Nakul Chandra Barua made. Pantaras was something, a dish, is a chop, is a cutlet, or whatever you call it, that evolved during the British period, because the British were very fond of it. It was the British Memsahibs would teach their mock cooks how to make a lot of dishes, including chops and cutlets. And under their tutelage, this was a creation that the local cooks came up with. And it basically included, it's like a crepe that is made with the batter of refined flour, to which a spicy mutton or chicken mince is filled. It's filled in this crepe. Then it is rolled, tucked at both sides. The ends are like tucked inside, and then it's given the usual batter. It's crumbed and it's fried. And it was it was not only very popular with the British, it was very popular with the Anglo-Indians, and still is. It was very popular with the British during tea time, very popular with the Anglo-Indians. And at the same time, even today, you'll find it being served at tea time in many of the colonial clubs of Calcutta. And this mutton pantaras is, so Nakul Chandra Barua also made mutton pantaras, along with making many other, chops, cutlets, puddings, and roasts, and all that. But he excelled in the making of pantaras. And later what happened, he opened his own shop because Theta Feta Club closed down. So he opened his own shop, which is known as Barua and Sons, where he made this mutton pantaras. And after that, what happened is, ultimately, the final address of Barua and Sons came to be near the Shambazar metro station, where it still is today. But the name was changed to Barua and Dey Fast Food Center because his son, Bidu Bhushan, he got into a partnership with Fatik Chandra Dey. And together it became a joint venture between the Mog Baruas and the Bengali Deys. And it was rechristened as Barua and Dey Fast Food Center. So this joint was the only place for a very, very long time that made and sold mutton pantaras. Today, pantaras actually. Today you get pantaras in many places, quite a few places. I've seen it being there in a few restaurants that serve pantaras, and a few hotels make pantaras. But this is the only place, for a long time, it was the only place that made pantaras. And one more feature of this place is the only place in the whole of Calcutta that still is owned by Mogs. It's still owned by Mogs and still has Mog cooks working on it. Because, Calcutta still has Mogs over here, but most of the succeeding generations, they're not interested in the restaurant profession. So they are no longer into this cooking industry, into the hospitality industry. This is one of the few places that still has Mog cooks in it and is owned by Mogs.
Okay, Mohana, before we go to the second part of this chop cutlet business, we have actually talked kind of cutlet. I just want to quickly go back to that picture that we had of the Calcutta College Street Coffee House, right? Because I think we need to acknowledge that that's Professor Sanyal who is sitting there, and I think she's correcting papers with that cup of coffee, which
Or
is a
making notes.
very, making notes, which is a very, very Calcutta kind of a look see. And we all know, those of us who have been born and brought up in Kolkata, that in Chittaranjan Avenue, there was another 2 coffee houses. Now the thing is gone. It's still there, but it's not what it was, which were called the House of Lords and the House of Commons.
India Coffee House, and it has
Yeah.
its House of Lords and House of Commons.
Commons. India Coffee House, House of Lords, House of Commons, because in the House of Lords, you got the milk separate in a milk pot, and in the other one, you got a ready-made coffee. So that was the kind of a difference. But the Lords and the Commons have gone. They have put up something over there where people just go there and read newspapers. And they have all the newspapers that are published from Kolkata. Even if they don't sell, you'll get it at India Coffee House in Chittaranjan Avenue. So coming back, going forward. And by the way, my friend Arjun Ghosh has warned me. He says that I'm doing too much of talking and I'm not letting the poor lady speak. I've been accused just now on. So I think I will finger on the lips. But you must then talk about chicken Kobiraji cutlet.
Kobiraji cutlet, yes.
Yeah. So this is from Dilkusha.
Dilkusha. So if you ask, I don't know. I mean, I think it is the best place in the city for Kobiraji cutlets, really. I mean, if you ask somebody, which is the best place in the city that serves Kobiraji cutlet, I think the answer will be that most people who love chops and cutlets will give Dilkusha Kebin.
Absolutely. But they also do the Dimit Devil. That's also a very Dilkusha specialty.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Kobiraji. So which one do you want me to do? Kobiraji or Dilkusha? Dimit Devil.
Options choice, Mohana. I really don't know.
Many people, the question that many people have that why is it named Kobiraji cutlet? It's basically, the word Kobiraj in Bengali means an Ayurvedic doctor, really. So there is, I mean, it's very difficult to understand why the word Kobiraj means an Ayurvedic doctor, and why the word Kobiraji has come to be applied to a cutlet, but. Most probably the general assumption is that it most probably came from the English word coverage, because over here a crispy eggs cover, you can see in the picture, crispy egg cover is used to kind of wrap the cutlet. So the word Kobiraji most probably came from the English word coverage, from coverage Kobiraji. And Kobiraji cutlet is usually made with, it's basically a non-vegetarian dish. It's usually made with chicken, mutton, prawn, or fish. I think everybody knows that. But, this frilly cover that you see on the surface is actually the crispy eggs cover that is used to wrap the cutlet, and it is fried that way. And this is the Kobiraji cutlet. Now, if you talk about Dimit Devil, which is another specialty of Dilkusha Kebin, Dimit Devil is more like the Bengali version of the Scotch egg. And the Scotch egg is, the difference is that the Scotch egg is more like, it's like a hard-boiled or a soft-boiled egg. They use the full egg, where they use sausage meat, actually. There's a seasoned sausage meat is used to wrap or encase the egg. And then it is, it's crumbed and it's fried, in the sense it's dipped in an egg wash and given a coat of breadcrumbs and crucially deep fried, or it's even baked at times. It's even baked till the meat gets cooked and the egg develops a kind of a golden brown surface. Now, obviously, the cooks in Bengal, they began, they spiced up the Scotch egg. They would add a lot of spices and herbs and all that to they made it with mutton, by the way. The minced meat over there was sausage meat, and they usually used to use, the meat used was either pork or beef. Whereas over here, it was minced mutton, minced mutton, keema, minced mutton. And that was basically cooked and all with herbs, spices, lots of spices. And then it was used to encase the egg. And over here, it was not soft-boiled egg, but always a hard-boiled egg. Because there, in the British, they use either soft-boiled or hard-boiled eggs. But in the Bengalis, we only use the hard-boiled eggs. And we usually halve the eggs and encase it with the mixture, with the mincemeat mixture. And then the usual method is followed of making it, dipping it into an egg wash and rolling it over a coat of breadcrumbs and deep frying. So this is the, and sometimes, this is known as the, this is basically the Dimit Devil. And Dil Kusha Kebin, one thing that they do is they make a variation to the standard recipe of Demade Devil. They add a few drops of vanilla essence. They add a few drops of vanilla essence to the minced meat mixture, and then they use it to encase the, the boiled, halved boiled egg. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a very interesting thing. And they, we usually, and one thing I would point out about the kashundi over there is that
You must.
yeah, we Bengalis, we love kashundi, which is our Indian version of the table mustard, basically. But the British, when every time we reached for the kashundi, the British would reach for the Coleman's mustard. So that is the difference, because we like the more spicy. Kashundi is a more pungent version and slightly spicy version of the standard mustard, the standard table mustard. So yeah,
Right.
and I think
Yeah,
kashundi is something that is not just not. Is I found many non-Bengalis loving kashundi. It's not something that's just popular with the Bengalis. You find most Calcutta homes, they have a bottle of kashundi in the kitchens.
Yeah, that is because they also have it with palong shag and lal shag and everything.
Right.
And of course, there is one interesting thing about this picture, and full marks to the photographer, Vivek Luke Mukherjee, is actually the design of that saucer on which the kashundi is served. You see that border is halfway, and then there is a white blank, the blue border of the crockery, of the saucer. That I think it sets the tone of a typical Kolkata restaurant like Dil Kusha or Onadi Cabin or any of these Boshanto Cabins and Sangu Valleys and what have you. All right, now to go on a little further, because we are on a T20 kind of a situation. We have overs are going out and few overs in hand, but good number of overs in hand. Not to worry, I'm not rushing you. We must talk about Pelletti, Federico Pelletti, the photographer, as far as we are concerned. Yeah. Tell us about Pelletti. What happened, and what happened to Pelletti's chain?
More than a photographer, he was known as he was a very excellent chef and baker. And, Pelletti, his journey in Calcutta started as a chief confectioner in the government house, actually, And Pelletti he was of Italian origin. And he was born in Turin, which is, he was born in Carignano, which is a small town in Turin. And he was of Italian origin, and he was always very good at baking. And Turin is a city that is known for its it's got a very strong confectionery tradition. So what happened is Lord Mayo, when he became the Viceroy of India, he wanted to have the best of chefs and confectioners to work for him in government house. And he then happened to, in 1869, I think, that's the year, he kind of held a confectionery competition in Turin, and Pelletti had participated in it, and he won it. And so that began his journey in Calcutta, because he arrived with Lord Mayo, and he became the chief confectioner, which was the first appointment of its kind in the government house which is known as today's Raj Bhavan in Calcutta. And but unfortunately, you see, Lord Mayo, he passed away because he was killed by a convict named Sher Ali Afridi when he went on an inspection tour of the convict settlement in Port Blair in the Andaman Islands. After which, because of which, then Pelletti was left on his own. He now had to fend for himself after the death of his patron. This is when he decided to venture out on his own, and he set up his own he got into a partner. He decided to venture out on his own, and he got into a partnership with Thomas O'Neill, with whom he set up a confectionery called O'Neill and Pelletti on Benting Street. But that was a failed partnership. So after that, he decided, no, I must go completely on my own. And the next venture that he opened was on, I think, Chorongi, where it was no longer just a confectionery, but a restaurant cum confectionery. And from there, there was a change of address ultimately to Esplanade Row East. And then the final address was at the end of 1902, they opened a restaurant cum confectionery at Government Place East in Dalhousie Square. And it was, from the time it was there in Esplanade Row East, the restaurant cum confectionery was very, very popular. It was gaining a lot of popularity. It was very successful. And not only serve the best quality food, impeccable service. It was a very classy ambience, very upper class and posh restaurant. And it also, the Britishers they had an appetite, the British, for combining dining with entertainment. And this is something that Pelletier provided. He whetted the British appetite for dining and entertainment by, providing musical performances, by organizing musical performances in his restaurant, balls and all that. And they were very much into the catering service as well. They were very much into caterings. And during these occasions, they supplied very good food. So yeah, Pelletier was a very big name. And finally, what happened, I'll just skip over and say, finally Pelletier, in the last days of his life, he was also, he was made a chevalier, by the way, by the King of Italy. Chevalier is like a knighthood. From Federico Pelletier came to be known as Chevalier Federico Pelletier. And he spent the last days of his life in Carignano in Italy, where he bought a house and bought a property, and he breathed his last in Carignano. But before he left for Carignano, he had handed over his restaurant cum confectionery to his sons. He had a very large family, by the way, and he had many sons. So he left this business in Calcutta to his sons, Edoardo and Giuseppe, who kind of very successfully managed the place. Yeah.
Right.
So there is a bit of a controversy about how it ended, but that some say that it closed down after independence, and some say closed down in the 1950s. So there is a bit of a controversy. Exactly, no one's really sure about the last days of this restaurant cum confectionery that is called Pelletier's. But yeah, it kind of soon after independence, it just downed its shutters.
Right. Of course, we have in the book, and this I must tell our viewers, that in the book, of course, she has discussed at length about the story of Fleury's and Purpose. And Purpose, as we all know, has been very much a part of our DNA, so much so that after Purpose shut down, I remember the Statesman as it existed then had come out with a story which was headlined "The House That Angela Built." And that was the story of Purpose, and how we felt so bad as citizens of the city that, it's shut down, so on and so forth. So before we go to the next one, Mona, there are some comments which I would like to just read out, but these are just, what has happened is that as we are discussing the restaurants and the dishes, there is a kind of a auto polling that is happening, But the first is from Madhavi Roy Banerjee. She says that she's finding this discussion to be fascinating. And she says, and no, you have got more reasons to feel happy. She says, I had initially signed in as a 2-minute attendee. What's a 2-minute attendee? Just a dropping by. And she says that it's history deliciously come alive. Your history is deliciously coming alive. And Shavuni says, Boruain Day is in Shambazar. Yes. Shutitto online wants to know about Bangali Shingara, but Shutitto, we have other things to cover. We'll come back to the Shingara later. And Shavuni is voting for Niranjan Agar for Dimit Devil. Niranjan Agar for Dimit Devil. And Kobiraji, she says, of course, Dilkhusha, but the cafe in Hajra, she says, is not bad. And of course, Bhashoti has talked about that WhatsApp, Facebook thing about Tagore was not willing to eat, and he was served Kobiraji, and Tagore agreed to eat. And therefore, it became Kobi Raji, meaning the poet has agreed to eat this cutlet. Therefore, it is, so that of course is a Facebook, standard Facebook kind of a joke. So that's it. But now, oh yes, they are talking about foul cutlet there. It's all there. It's all there, the chopped cutlet. And of course, chopped cutlet, as far as we are concerned, many, I think from my generation who all are watching this, have read Hemendra Kumar Rai. So we know about Ram Hori, the chef come all-purpose man in their house, the help, who would cook up all sorts of mache shingara and air cutlet and all kinds of stuff that we have drooled on while reading Bimal Kumar, Janto Manik, and Bagha and Sundar Babu. Okay, let's talk about some of the outside influences other than the English, British cha, coffee. We're talking about the Armenians. This is the Armenian church. Couple of things about the Armenian church. Why do they celebrate Christmas on the 6th of January?
Yeah, that's a very important question, because quite a few people, this is a very question that kind of people are curious about why they celebrate Christmas on 6th of January. There's a bit of history in that. See, this Armenia was the first country, I would say, in the entire world that adopted Christianity as a state religion. And this happened in, this basically because uh, the Gregory the Illuminator, who was the leading apostle, he was the leading apostle of Armenia at that point of time. He convinced Tiridates III, who was the king of Armenia, to convert to Christianity, and he baptized him in 301 CE. And by royal decree, he was also given the permission to convert the entire nation to Christianity, which he did. Now, but Armenia, since the very beginning, has celebrated Christmas on the 6th of January. And actually, Christians all over the world, they would celebrate Christmas on the 6th of January till the 4th century. And the reason for the birthday of Christ, Jesus Christ, has not been historically established, neither is it mentioned in the Gospels. But you see, what happened is this: till the 4th century, as I said, they would celebrate Christmas on 6th January. Then why did this change happen? That it was shifted, the birthday was shifted to 25th December. And the reason for that is that the Romans, they celebrated certain festivals with the Roman Catholic Church considered to be pagan festivals. They celebrated the birthday of the sun god, and which was actually celebrated on 25th of December. And to override or to subdue this festival, that is the celebration of the birthday of the sun god, the Roman Catholic Church decided they declared 25th December as the birthday of Jesus Christ, rather as a Christmas, and shifted. And I want to mention one thing before I forget. At that point of time, it was not known as Christmas. The festival was called Theophany. It's called Theophany, which is an ancient Greek word, which means a manifestation or revelation of God to a human. So yeah, so coming back to the point, 25th December was, to kind of, they struck the flag of Christmas right at the peak of this festival to override or to subdue it. And 25th of December was declared as Christmas, and 6th January became Epiphany. Epiphany, as we all know, is the day when the three wise men, or the king, known as the Magi, they visited the infant Jesus in Bethlehem and gifted him gave him the gifts of frankincense, myrrh, and gold. And so since then, 25th December has been Christmas, celebrated as Christmas by the Roman Catholic Church, by Christians all over the world, and 6th January is Epiphany. But why do the Armenians are the only people who celebrate Christmas on the 6th of January? They stuck to this tradition. There are two reasons for that. One is that it was never a part of the religious tradition to celebrate the birthday of the sun god. It was never a part of the religious tradition to celebrate the birthday of sun god. And the Armenian Apostolic Church, which is the national church of Armenia, also known as the Armenian Orthodox Church, was not a satellite of the Roman Catholic Church. So this kind of in brief explains why Armenia still observes the traditional birthday of Jesus Christ, or the traditional date of Christmas, that is 6th of January.
Okay, now coming closer to the food of the Armenians' influence in Kolkata, dolma, the good old popular potoled dolma, is, I guess, an Armenian origin. I mean, that it's an Armenian dish.
Dolma is Armenian origin in the sense they have a dish called dolma, which they make with grapevine leaves.
Right.
Which is stuffed with minced meat and rolled into cigar-like shapes, and small cigar-like shapes, and then it is boiled. It's actually cooked in boiling water. And obviously the meat is seasoned, and then it is eaten with yogurt mixed with garlic powder. So, but when they came to Calcutta, grape leaves was not available. So what they did is they adjusted by stuffing cabbage leaves or stuffing pottle or pointed gourd. So the Bengalis, they adopted this practice of, they liked it very much, of stuffing the pointed gourd or stuffing pottle with different kinds of fillings, and they cook. But in the Armenians, obviously they had it dry, and we Indians were spice-loving people, so we kind of cooked it with a lot of spices, and we cooked it in a spicy gravy. And we kind of, instead of having it like with yogurt mixed with garlic powder, we have it with rice and pulaus and all that.
precisely. So all of them had left something or the other for the Bengalis and Kolkata to pick up. And before I move on further, Bhashruti, there is the salivation continues on Facebook. Bhashruti is talking about fowl cutlet, breast cutlet, all those very, very Sangu Valley-like things that we always are fond of. And Sejang Haokip, Sejang, I hope I got the pronunciation correct. He is from Shillong. She is from Shillong. And the person has read Mohona's book and really appreciates the book, sends congratulations to you. So that's the news that has come in from Shillong. Okay, there you are. Okay, now let's move on a little further. We are going to talk about the Anglo-Indian food, but in the Anglo-Indian food, it's a huge subject. It's a 2-hour subject by itself, really, and we can't get into that. But one of the things mentioned is the question of the Anglo-Indians, delivering some of the stuff like chutneys and of course desserts like the jalebi pudding you have talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anglo-Indian cuisine is more like a fusion cuisine of the East and the West.
Right.
More like a fusion cuisine. So on one end, they have things like rice and curries. On the other hand, they have things like meaty pies and roasts and stews and puddings. So obviously there's a because, obviously because of the European influence, the British influence in their culture. So on the one hand, if you would want me to talk about the food, is that you see, when the British came first and they settled in, they came to this country, the Khansamas or the local cooks, they made rice and curry for them, because obviously at that point of time, they made the local fare. Because at that point of time, they were not trained by the Mem Sahibs, the British, the Europeans had just arrived, and they did not know how to make the European food. The continental food, and so they kind of gave them they gave them the local fare like rice and curries, and the British also, they adjusted to the environment by eating all this stuff. But as soon as they settled down and the Mem Sahibs came, the Mem Sahibs, they taught the native cook, the local cooks, how to make the local dishes, how to make the European dishes, and then what evolved, the cooks or the Khansamas, they added their personal touch to the cooking by adding locally available spices and ingredients, And so what evolved was rather a spicy European food. So you see, this tradition, this combination of the East and the West, having cuisines of both the East and the West, has continued in the homes of even the Anglo-Indians. So they have in one end, as I said, they have rice and curry. On the other hand, they have all these dishes. And if I give an example of say shepherd's pie. Shepherd's pie in, I would say the British is a very typically British dish. Shepherd's pie is a minced meat pie. And it is made with minced meat that is cooked with chopped onions and other vegetables like corn, peas, carrots, and the stock, meat stock, and then seasoned with salt, pepper, Worcester sauce, and tomato puree. But this is a standard recipe. The cooks or the Khansamas in over here, they follow the standard recipe, but they added their own variety to it, their own touch to it by adding varieties of local spices like ginger garlic paste, garam masala, coriander powder, red chili powder, and all that, and cumin powder. So you see, this recipe is a standard British recipe, but there's a personal Indian touch to it. So this is the kind of food that the Anglo-Indians, they eat. For example, puddings, as you said, puddings. They have, they have the European puddings like apple grunt, like caramel custard, bread and butter pudding, but at the same time they have jalebi pudding, which is their own creation, where the broken pieces of jalebi are immersed in the custard mixture and it's baked. So that's jalebi pudding. Another thing is chutney, as you pointed out. Chutney is a very Indian concept. That is, originally it's a very Indian concept, but it's very much there in the part of Anglo-Indian cuisine. So, they have like a variety of chutney, like sweet mango chutney, coconut and coriander chutney, tomato chutney. There's something also called the devil chutney. And this is very interesting. It's known as devil chutney, which is eaten with, pulaus and meat curries and salads. Now, devil chutney is, it's known as devil chutney. It's a very interesting thing why they got the name. It's basically made with dried red chilies. It's the dried red chilies ground into a paste. That's the main ingredient. With onions, and then with onions ground into a paste with dried red chilies and onions, and then it's mixed with lime juice or vinegar and salt, as well as sugar, a little bit of sugar, and also sugar. So this This dried red chili gives it a very red look, which is the reason why it's known as devil chutney, with a fiery look, which is the reason why it's known as devil chutney. But it is not very, what should I say? It's not very spicy. It's not too spicy. It's actually quite sweet in taste because of the presence of sugar in it. Yeah, and they have it like that with meat, with pulaus and meat curries and salad. So this chutney concept is very much Indian, but it's a part of the Anglo-Indian cuisine.
Right. And I think since we talked about the devil's chutney and the, the fiery red chilies paste and all that, I think we must
this is red color, which is why it's known as devil chutney.
Right. Okay.
It's actually a little sweet in taste and not that pungent.
Fair enough.
Right.
But I think we should really move to something sweeter, because I guess the Portuguese were one of the people who really introduced what we call is mishti, right?
Yeah.
The mishti in the Calcutta, in the Bengali cuisine. And while we have all sorts of stories about, and the most iconic person is Nobin Das, because of, and then K.C. Das, and into a complete branded chain of Rasagullas. So, and Lady Kelly. But then we also have something like you have in your book called Gupo Sandesh. What is this Gupo Sandesh? Is it Makha Sandesh?
No, this is actually a photograph that I took in Guptipara. I went all the way to Guptipara, and the confectioners, the Moiras, they made this sweet for me, and they displayed it like this in the plate, so that I could take a nice photograph. Gupo Sandesh, Sandesh was before that known as Makha Sandesh,
Right.
It is in Guptipara that Sandesh first got its name and form, I would say. It's before that it was a sweet paste called Makha Sandesh. And it is in Guptipara that Makha Sandesh graduated from that Sandesh graduated from the sweet paste of Makha Sandesh to Gupo Sandesh, which the name was given to the Sandesh as Gupo Sandesh, and it was a very rudimentary form of the sweet that is made with chana and sugar and shaped into a round ball. Yeah, so this
Right.
is Gupo Sandesh, yes.
This is Gupo Sandesh, and this is
From
something
there
that you
were
have.
more variations added. I mean, Gupo Sandesh, the Moiras, they improved upon the Gupo Sandesh, and they added, and they started bringing out fruit pulp based Sandesh like Aam Sandesh.
All right.
Aam Sandesh,
Okay.
mango Sandesh, and then at
Okay.
the same time, this was in the 19th century. So around this time, even this Norampak and Korapak versions of Sandesh came, Bhappa Sandesh came. And then obviously, when the British Raj, when Kolkata became the capital of British India, that is when, Moiras became very competitive. They would compete with each other, and they would bring out a variety of Sandesh. And the more they competed, inadvertently it benefited the sweetmeat industry of Bengal.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so they competed, they added more, because chana is a paste, lot can be done with it. You can add essences, you can add colors, you can add dried fruits, you can add a lot of taste to it, and then you can shape it the way you want to. It's a very pliable, soft paste. You can shape it, give it different variety, different shapes, different forms with the help of a chach, that is the molds, whether they're wooden molds or stone molds or clay molds. They were given different shapes and designs, and and they've also given fancy names, like either to highlight the ingredients that went into making the Sandesh, or just as promotional gimmicks like Manohara Sandesh, Pranohara Sandesh, Obak Sandesh, what
Yeah.
Parijat Sandesh. But this
And-
is the first form of Sandesh, this that was given a round form and was given a name, Gupo Sandesh.
Okay, excellent. In fact, Mohana, I picked up something during the pandemic and the lockdowns. You see, the West Bengal government had is to keep the sweet meat shop, Mishti Dokan. They could open up to very late hours. They could start early, and
Yes.
Now everybody was wondering why, and the typical Bengali humor was that in the evening we want to have fresh shingaras. That is why so that we can they kept open. But actually, the real reason somebody mentioned was because the milk production in Bengal. The milk production in Bengal, the kind of milk turned into chana, and this milk is not for consumption, for drinking like in
It will
North
go
India.
wasted. Yes.
Yeah, it will go wasted. So you have to make mishtis out of it. Otherwise, the whole.
Yes.
So that is the reason why the Moiras were given long hours to carry on. But we also have two here, the Nehru Sandesh by Bhim Chandra Nath. And they also have something called Ashu Bhog, which was, I think,
very much.
to honor Ashutosh. So who is this Nehru? Is it Jawaharlal Nehru, on whom?
No, Motilal Nehru. His father, Motilal Nehru.
Right,
In 1920, Motilal Nehru, who we all know was a renowned lawyer and a leader of the Indian National Congress, he visited Calcutta.
Right.
And they held a grand feast in his honor. And they asked Bhim Chandra Nath to make a special sweet for the occasion. And he came up with this Nehru Shondish, which is green in color. As you see, it's round, green in color, and made with a paste of ground pistachios and almonds. And it's a very expensive Shondish because the high cost of its production is no longer made in Bhim Chandra Nag. And if you want to have Nehru Shondish, you'll have to place a special order for it. Yeah.
Okay.
And also Bhim Chandra Nag, it kind of enjoyed, if I mentioned about Ashubho, Bhim Chandra Nag enjoyed the patronage of many great personalities. It was loved by many people. It was loved by the local public, the general public. They loved the sweets because very superior quality sweets. And at the same time, they're still maintaining that standard. It's also, even many eminent personalities enjoy the sweets of the shop. And one of them was Ashutosh Mukherjee, the renowned educationist and jurist. And there's a story that goes that, every afternoon he would travel in his horse-drawn carriage from the Calcutta High Court to the University of Calcutta, and he would stop by at Bhim Chandra Nag and buy 2 baskets of sweets for his family. They were very fond of sweets. Buy 2 baskets of sweets for his family. And as a tribute to his regular patronage, for some time a Shondish was available in the shop called the Ashubho.
Right. Yes. In fact, there used to be a chair in Bhimnag's shop where Ashu Babu used to sit. It was there for a very long time. And of course, one trivia, which I'm sure everybody knows over here, that the only clock in the world, the wall clock in the world with Bengali digits is hung. It hangs at Bhim Chandra Nag's shop, Bangla, by Cook and Kelby. All right. Now let's get on to something to talk about. We have talked about the Anglo-Indian cuisine, the Portuguese, the Armenian, and now let's look at the Jewish. This is the Magen David Synagogue and the Jewish influence. And one of the items that you have talked about the Jewish influence is
Aloo Makala.
In other words, aloo bhaja.
Yeah.
I mean, to put it simply, aloo bhaja. Right. So what is this aloo makala and aloo bhaja?
Yeah, this is actually a dish, the Jewish dish that originated in Calcutta, in Bengal, Aloo makala aloo is, as we know, is potato, and makala is in Arabic means fried. So this has been inspired by a Bengali dish, aloo bhaja. And over here, this actually they don't chop it into pieces. The whole round potatoes are fried very crisp, and they're fried so crisp that you have to take it like this and bite it. You can't into your hands and you have to bite it. You can't use a fork and knife. If you use a fork and knife, it will fly off the plates. It's so crisp. And they have it with a green methi chutney called halba. It's also known as hilbe. And this is one of the influence you see in this local influence in the Jewish cuisine. And the Jews also, they like having, one of the other influences on Jewish cuisine is when they settled in Calcutta, they developed an affinity for the freshwater fish like Ilish and baked tea. And they have this very common fish stew preparation, where they cook the flakes of the fried fish in boiling coconut milk with chopped green chilies and coriander leaves. So this is one thing, they like the freshwater fish of Bengal, especially Ilish and baked tea. Yeah, that's Hilsa and baked tea, or Barramundi.
That's right.
And there's another dish I would like to mention is that, how they've adjusted is a very nice thing is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is their Jewish New Year. And they celebrate this Jewish New Year. They welcome the sweetness of the New Year they celebrate it as part of tradition with apples and honey. With apple and honey, they celebrate it. But when they settled over here, instead of having it with apple and instead of celebrating this festival with the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah with apple and honey, they celebrated with apple murabba, which is, round and peeled apple. The whole peeled apples, they cook it in sugar syrup. So that's a very interesting thing.
Exactly. In fact, before we move on now to get out of the foreigners, we'll have to come down to the locals. I just want to check out a few of the messages that are coming through, Mohana. Urmimala and Mala and Moshumi, they are all finding this discussion to be very interesting, fascinating, and nostalgic at the same time.
Thank you so much.
Indrani Dasgupta actually has now made a statement saying that I have to buy this book. Thank you, Indrani, on behalf of Mohana and for this effort that we are all doing. Indrani Sen wants to know, while on the sweets, what about Ledikini? Actually, we have skipped Ledikini purposely.
Everybody knows
because, that Lady Canning. And Sheila says it's a treasure trove of rich information. And Bhashwati says finger chips and is also some kind of aloo bhaja. Yes, finger chips is also shaibi aloo bhaja. That's about, I
Yes,
think.
yes, yes. You can call it potato wedges.
Yeah, wedges. And now they're called wedges, finger
Yeah.
chips. Okay, now let's look at our man, Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, and let's talk about the biryani and the Mughlai cuisine in Kolkata. This is probably outside the Bengali cuisine and Chinese cuisine. Currently, the most hot favorite is biryani. And the only thing that we can talk about, well, of course, there is the shifting of the Awadh capital to Mithia Buruj the only reason for Mughlai food in India, or has there been also the Tipu Sultan, the movement exodus during the Tipu Sultan's family which parked here in Toliganj, and even the Murshidabad family when they came into Kolkata. So we pass on everything to Wajid Ali Shah because by saying that, but is he the only reason for biryani and kebabs in Kolkata?
To a great extent, of course, I would say definitely he's the only reason, because before that, before Wajid Ali Shah, the concept of biryani was absent in Bengal. It was absent in biryani is a very Awadhi concept actually. It was a very Awadhi concept because it was the credit. There are many anecdotes I would say that surround the invention of the dish biryani, but the main credit for this, since I'm talking about Wajid Ali Shah, the main credit about the invention of biryani goes to Asaf-ud-Dawla. Asaf-ud-Dawla was the Nawab of Awadh, fourth Nawab of Awadh. And the word biryani, by the way, is derived from the Persian word biryan, which means fried before cooking. And, he took up the it was during his reign that the dish evolved. And it was basically, Asaf-ud-Dawla, he shifted his capital from Faizabad to Lucknow. And it was during that time he built many wonderful monuments and structures in Lucknow. One of them was the Asafi Imambara, which is also known as the Bara Imambara. And the Bara Imambara was actually taken up as a charitable project to generate employment for the workers, to generate employment for people during the famine, the terrible famine that struck Awadh. And so during this time, this construction of the Asafi Imambara was taken up as a charitable project to generate employment and also to give the construction workers, they were given food as wages. They were not given wages, they were given food as wages, The food was their wage actually. And then what happened is, so the cooks during this time, they would fill the cauldrons. They would take large cauldrons, fill it with rice, meat, vegetables, and then seal the cauldrons with the dough. They'll put the lid on it and seal it with the dough, and cook it on a low flame for several hours. This is how the concept of biryani came into existence. The concept of biryani and even the concept of dum cooking, which is a very slow method of slow cooking, so that it gently releases the flavors of all that's cooking inside the pot, whether it's meat, whether it's vegetables or whatever. So this is how biryani came into existence. And what happened is Asaf-ud-Dawla was one day he was passing by this site, this where the construction was taking place, and the whiff, an aroma of this dish, this biryani that was cooking, he just smelled it and he loved the aroma, and he ordered that this dish be served to him quite often in his dastarkhan. And so, this is how the concept of biryani came into existence. And to please the Nawab, they removed the vegetables and it became full of meat. They added more meat to it and more exotic spices and additives like saffron, rose water. And that's how the biryani evolved, the dish. And this biryani was brought to Calcutta by Wajid Ali Shah, and he came and settled here in Mithia Buruj. And now there is a lot of theory. One is that in order to cut costs, because the Nawab had fallen on hard times, Wajid Ali Shah, that they added potatoes. They replaced some of the meat in the biryani with potatoes. But this is something that the descendants of Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, they completely disagree with, because they say that the Nawab was given an annual pension of 12 lakh rupees by the British. So where does the question arrive of cutting costs? Because it's enough, the money was enough for the Nawab to indulge in his refined taste of food. And so, it was just something because, the Nawab, he was, Nawabs, however, they gave their chefs a lot of free hand to experiment in the kitchen. And so it's out of one of these experimentations that the potato was added and was served to the Nawab, and he loved it very much. And he ordered that this vegetable become a constant feature in the biryani, and from which the Calcutta Aloo Biryani actually started, which later spread from the royal kitchen of Metya Brews to the rest of the people. And yeah, that's the, if you say,
That's
yes, the
great.
biryani in Calcutta definitely started with Wajid Ali Shah.
Lovely, excellent. And to talk about Asad Ali, there is that famous couplet in Lucknow, they say, "Na de Allah, use de Asafudullah." That was because if the Lord does not give to you, Asafudullah will look after you by giving you biryani. That was, the payment for the. Okay, now to get on to it a little further, we say, "Na de Allah," we are going to talk about Achipur and to the Chinatown. And I think, as I was saying, that after the Bengalis' own Bangla Khabar, the next best thing that we say our own is Chinese in Kolkata. So, this is again a reasonably very long subject to talk about.
Very long subject, yes.
Very long subject, but there are a couple of things I think we need to talk. Yes, YouTube, and this is the good old chimney soup, otherwise known as Geico. But there's one person I think I just want to refer to mention, because we have very sweetly called her, and with a lot of admiration and affection, the dawn of Chinatown, Monica Liu. And you have also narrated the entire story of Monica Liu, how she struggled to open up one restaurant, and now she actually owns a chain of Chinese restaurants in Kolkata, including the good old landmark Mandarin and Kimling and many others. So, Chinese, there's nothing much to really say, while John Matthew thinks that it's fascinating, and Mohana really knows the subject. It's the famous creative director, John Matthew, coming in from Delhi. So that is, of course, the chimney soup we all know, but there's something about YouTube I just want to add as a trivia, that Sushanjit Saha, a friend, journalist from Bhopal, who I've noticed you have referred to one of his articles, had written to us saying after that this came after the great advertising man Ram Ray expired, that Ramda had actually written to Sushen and said that this was closing down YouTube, that we should all do something to maintain this heritage. I think this is the first time in the city that people come together to what they think is a heritage restaurant. It has to be preserved by the people itself. That is our love for, well, not just Chinese, for the people of Calcutta, no matter what religion, race, creed, and origin that they are. That is where Calcutta becomes Sushanjit Guha. Sorry, that's Sushanjit Guha. Okay.
Yeah, Sushanjit
Guha. Sushanjit Guha, that's right. Sushanjit Guha. Okay, now let's talk about Bangla cuisine. And Bangla cuisine has too many factors. But this is, of course, the Shet Pathore Thala, which was used by the Tagore family, maybe by Tagore himself. And it is there at Ravindranath Bharati. So now that there are so many cuisines, there is Ghoti, there is Bangal, there is Makha, there is this, there is Sheddo, and there is, the varieties are one to many. But there are a few points I want to talk about. One is, of course, the khichdi. Khichdi, yes. The khichdi, I think, is something that we can't take all of them, but khichdi is something that I think we must make a mention. It's so Bangali.
Yes, yes. There are very interesting aspects of khichdi. It's not that simple a dish. In the sense, it's maybe simple in making, but there are some very interesting stories related to khichdi. Khichdi is a rice and lentil dish that we know, but there is a difference in the way the people in Epar Bangla and Opar Bangla, the concept that's there, the people in Epar Bangla, that is this side, West Bengal, and these Bengalis, the difference in the way they would make it. Epar Bangla people, we like, we like making khichdi as a porridge-like consistency that's made with a plain or with seasonal vegetables and all that. But with the Opar Bangla, they liked cooking khichdi as bhuna khichdi. Bhuna khichdi is not the porridge-like consistency of khichdi. It is more like a dry and fluffy, like a pulao-like consistency, It's like a pulao-like preparation. That's bhuna khichdi. And they liked eating bhuna khichdi a lot. And they cooked it with, because it was cooked for a long time, that's how the name came up, bhuna khichdi. And they cooked it with, vegetables, they cooked it with meat, fish, eggs. And there is an often heard story that while the people in Opar Bangla like cooking bhuna khichdi with hilsa or beef. In Epar Bangla, Swami Vivekananda, who was a very enthusiastic and experimental chef, he liked cooking this. He was very fond of this variety of khichdi, bhuna khichdi, and he liked cooking it with duck eggs. And bhuna khichdi, obviously, something that khichdi is something that we kind of relate to two things a lot. One is the monsoons. Bishti pole khichdi khete hobe. There's something that we relate to the monsoons, and also to Saraswati Pujo. Saraswati Puja khichdi is very important along with labra. But there's another important thing that I would mention about khichdi is the British were very fond of khichdi, by the way. They were very fond of khichdi, and they slowly grew very fond of this dish as they stayed in Calcutta in Bengal for years, and they made their own version of it. That is, they called it kedgiri. They would their version consisted of rice. It consisted of lentils. It consisted of fried fish flakes, hard-boiled eggs, spices, and raisins. And they took this fish kedgiri with them back to England and introduced it all over the Commonwealth as a breakfast menu, on the breakfast menu all over the Commonwealth. And they later added minced meat to it to also add variety to it. So yes, the simple dish called khichdi. There's a bhuna khichdi. There is a kedgiri. It's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there is another kind of khichdi omelette that I made. I keep listening or reading about it. It is called traner khichdi. Tran. Because when they go to in Sundarbans after the avalanche, so they all carry drums of khichdi to be served to the poor, and that is called traner khichdi.
Interesting.
It's khichdi made in huge numbers. All right, now to run through, we were talking about the fact that we'll talk about March a little later, but then if you look at vegetables, shukto, this is shukto in front of us. I understand you have said in your book, not I understand, I've read in the book that the widows of Bengal, they had much to do with the ever expanding number of recipes of vegetarian dishes in the Bengali cuisine. So much so that I keep telling my North Indian friends that you all are vegetarian by birth, but you all are very limited vegetarian. Yes. Either it's a paneer or a aloo or whatever. But see this just shows what kind of a expanse. And Mona has actually mentioned in the book that the widows sitting in their kitchen, they were actually trying to do all kinds of experiments with vegetables. Because again, since they could not have anything to do with lasan and onion and garlic, so therefore, that's how the range went on becoming bigger and bigger. And
they would use the peels of the vegetable, the scrapings. Yeah. They would cook it into dishes. Aloo kosha bhaja, lauer kosha bhaja.
Right, exotic.
Bodi and all that. Yeah.
Okay, Mala Mukherjee has a very humorous comment. She says that thank God Wazir Ali went into bad times, otherwise we wouldn't have had aloo biryani. It's good that he fell into bad times. Kolkata aloo biryani hoto na. Of course, now we are coming to some of the most exotic things. Is this kochuri, the most popular snack. And along with this popular snack, we have a picture of Mukhuruchi. This is a telebhaja shop in North Calcutta. The important reason why we have chosen Mukhuruchi is because Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to come to Mukhuruchi and he used to love his telebhajas and that kochuri which you just saw.
Yes, and that is actually the picture taken from Mukhuruchi. The kochuri and aloo.
The kochuri and aloo. So that is what he used to have. And even when Girish Ghosh used to land up and used to feel hungry, I think one of the monks was sent to Mukhuruchi to get those telebhajas for him. So this is there. And of course, there's another interesting thing that we have, which is of course has made a slight mention in Ray's Aguntuk. Bodi mane goina bodi. Now that's absolutely a creative art that Bengal possesses of making. And talking about this, let's now come to almost the end of our story is March. Now March again is a book by itself, but what is this? A mango fish?
One of the things I would like to mention about fish, because fish is something that people may find very interesting, is about the Topshe March. The Topshe March is something that, it was the British again were very fond of the Topshe March. And it was they who named, Topshe March is known in English as mango fish. And they named it mango fish because It breeds in the rivers during the mango season. And Topshe March, we kind of have it as a fritter actually. Like, we coated it because Topshe March is very soft. It's a small fish that's soft bones. And we dip it in a batter. We coat it with a batter of gram flour with a spiced up batter, and then we fry it. So we eat it like a fritter. But they would eat like, they would cook it their own way. They would have it like a cutlet, crumbed and fried. And they would have also a dish called the smoked mango fish. So that was very interesting. They would have a dish called smoked mango fish. They were extremely fond of Topshe March.
How interesting. That's lovely.
And I've given up anecdotes and quotations in my book, which kind of elucidates that. Extremely fond of Topshe March.
And where is Mukhuruchi? Sheila has asked, where is Mukhuruchi?
GLT Road, Gopal Lal Thakur Road.
No, and where is Gopal Lal Thakur?
That's near Dunlop. It's in North Calcutta.
All right, there you are. And our friend Hauke from Shillong writes that I'm started feeling hungry looking at the Bengali fish, cooked fish. So that's how it is going, And Sheila says jhalmuri. Yes, jhalmuri is a very regular thing. We have it almost every day. Now let's come almost to the close, and really to the close. It's the last item that we would like to talk about is that we have talked about Portuguese, Armenians, Jews, English, British, Anglo-Indian, everything. And now coming closer home, we have talked about the Chinese. We are talking about the Marwadis, the Sindhis, and now how come there are no real great Marwadi eateries that serving Marwadi cuisine? I'm not talking about ghee fried samosas and stuff like that. But this is, of course, the typical. This is the 1930s photograph, and old timers may just about notice that right at the one of the hoardings that is featuring is that of Kumaresh. And I think my generation over here who are watching have all been born and brought up on Kumaresh, the bitterest, what shall I say, medicine that we have ever had in our life, which is what is keeping us going, Kumaresh. Yeah. Okay. So the Marwadis, is it all veg, really, Mohana?
No, not at all. You see, the Marwadis in Calcutta, they're mainly Jains and Hindus, which is the reason why people have the misconception that Marwadi cuisine is all vegetarian cuisine. But that is not really so, because Marwadis have Rajputs in them. The Rajputs are the warrior class, and they're very much into non-vegetarian food. In fact, there was a time when there was no ban on hunting. They would have the spoils of the shikar. And they have a wonderful dish called lal mas, which is a product of the royal kitchen. Okay, lal mas. It is lal mas, when literally translated, it means red meat, and it is a very spicy dish. And a lot of red chilies go into the dish. And it was originally made with wild game meat like boar and deer. But because of the ban on hunting, it is now made with goat meat, but mutton. But lal mas originated from the royal kitchens of Rajasthan, the Rajputs. And also one more important thing, many people don't know, Marwadis, there is a small section of Marwari speaking Muslim community of dyers in the Chitpur area. By dyers, I mean D-Y-E-R-S, dyers who dye clothes, and they are called the Rangres. So they are a Marwari speaking Muslim community of dyers who function from the Chitpur area of Calcutta, and they are known as Rangres, and they are Muslims, and they eat the typically Muslim cuisine. So no, not at all. So if you think that Marwaris are vegetarians only, or the Rajasthanis are vegetarians only, that's not true actually. Majority of them are, but not completely. Can I mention about Kher Sangri? Do we have time?
Yeah, Kher Sangri you must. And you must also mention that is Tibetan food only momo and thupka?
Which one?
Is Tibetan, one is Kher Sangri, yes, quickly, Kher Sangri, the Marwadi food,
Yes.
And I'm also talking about the Tibetan, the most popular roadside other than roll is your momo. But is momo the only Tibetan thing in the world?
No, not at all. Because you see,
so first talk about Kher Sangri. Yeah.
Talk about Kher Sangri. So Kher Sangri is basically, Kher is like a small berry. It's a saab berry that grows on a small and shrub-like tree. It's called a desert berry, because you've got to understand the geography of Rajasthan. It's a very dry and arid region, and to serve, so not much of green vegetation, not much of vegetation grows. So Kher is something, it's a small berry, that's a sour berry, it's a sour and peppery taste. And sangri is like a long green bean that grows on the khejri tree. Both these trees are evergreen trees and they can survive on the harsh climatic conditions and the dry, arid climatic conditions of Rajasthan. And the Marwaris are very fond of kher sangri. They cook it in a dish called kher sangri ki sabzi, which is a very, it's a dish. It's like a classic dish along with dal bati churma. We think dal bati churma is the only thing classic dish of Marwaris. No, even kher sangri is. It is cooked in, is offered in weddings, on celebratory occasions. Also, they serve this kher sangri ki sabzi. Now, what I want to mention, little, you may think that, oh, what's a big deal about it? There's story, interesting story behind kher sangri. That is kher sangri, this very unassuming berry and the bean, the desert berry and the bean. They helped the Rajasthanis survive the great Rajputana famine of 1868. What happened is during this famine that all the whatever scarce natural vegetation was there in the land, they had all died and disappeared. What was left was this unassuming berry and the bean on the trees, because their trees are evergreen. So what was left is this berry and the bean on the trees. And the Rajasthani, it is believed that this was the first time that they discovered, they actually really noticed the berry and the bean, and to survive their to survive the famine, they used it in cooking. And so it is this unassuming berry and bean, the kher and the sangri, it helped them survive the great Rajputana famine. So this kher sangri is very close to the hearts of, very close to the hearts of the Rajasthani people. And if you're talking about momo and thupka, I would say Tibetan cuisine is not just about momo and thupka. Although momo and thupka, I would say, is a brand ambassador of the cuisine to the world, but there is much more to it, much more. Because to understand momo, to understand kind of the food habits of the Tibetans, you have to understand the kind of a geographical condition rather of Tibet, which is in very high altitude. Because it is very high altitude, not many plants grow. The very hardy plants will survive the climate. It's a very cold climate over there. Sometimes in the winter, the temperature falls well below zero. So to survive that climate, what are the crops that really grows there? That is barley. The resilient highland barley is one of the major crops, and it's grown all over the region. And is also the staple food in their diet. And also yak. Yak is a major source of, meat. Not only is a major transport, the large hairy animals called yak, they're not only the major source of transport, they're major source of meat also for the people. Now, coming to the barley, I would say they have a dish called sampa. Sampa is like the national dish of Tibet. It's a roasted barley flour. And what they do is they knead it into a dough with pocha, especially with pocha, which is butter tea. They knead it into a dough with butter tea, and they make sometimes additional ingredients like sugar and dried cheese, and all the butter goes into it. And they make small balls out of it. They pinch small balls out of it. These balls are called pa. And they eat it either plain or they eat it by dipping it in a spicy sauce or curry. So this sampa is a major source of food in Tibet. And they also cook sampa in a porridge-like consistency called chamdur. Chamdur, they also and at the same time in Darjeeling district, if I have to talk about Darjeeling district, how they've adjusted, they not only make sampa, they eat the traditional roasted barley flour, but they also make sampa out of some of the other things that are available in Darjeeling, like makai sampa, that is maize sampa, chana sampa, black chickpea sampa, matar sampa, that is dried yellow pea sampa. The flours made from this, they treat it the same way as they would treat the traditional sampa, that is roasted barley flour. Another very interesting feature of it is more like a sampa, the spa that they eat, and the porridge is more like a morning breakfast food for the Tibetan people, although there was a point of time really when it was eaten more often. Now, if you talk about the last food I would like to talk about is pocha. Pocha is a Tibetan butter tea. Now, this concept may sound very strange at first, Tibetan butter tea. So the Tibetans are very fond of black tea. And what they do is that they usually, the black tea, it's available in Tibet in the form of bricks. And they crumble some tea from there, some tea from there, and they put it in boiling water and they brew it. and then they strain the tea and they put it into a long cylindrical churn where they add some, milk and salt and butter, not sugar, salt and butter, and then they churn it like this. They churn it and then they pour the tea into a teapot and they warm it and serve it. This is called pocha. They don't boil it because they feel, Tibetans feel boiling the butter tea it makes it lose the flavor. So they warm it and they drink it. This is pocha. And it may sound very strange, the concept of pocha butter tea, but actually it keeps them warm. It keeps them warm in cold winter months of Tibet and provides the necessary vitamins and minerals that is required to fight the cold weather, to deal with the cold weather. So this concept of butter tea is there even among the Tibetans in Darjeeling district and even in Calcutta.
Absolutely. Very true. Very true. One last question that has come from Sheila. She's asking, what about the Burmese influence, and which is strictly Khonsui?
The Burmese influence is definitely there, but I guess you got to read my book a bit for that, because if I tell everything.
All right. Yeah. That's it. Now I think you're talking.
Burmese influence is definitely there. There's an entire chapter on the Burmese influence and Northeast Indian influence.
Yeah. Now you're talking. Well, I think we have completed our 20 overs. Taken a little bit of time, does not matter. Everybody is salivating, everybody is hungry, everybody, I'm sure, wants to read the book. But one more thing I must tell everybody over here, and first of all, tempt them by showing this book. Here you are, The Taste of Time. And this again, I must show the spine because they know then how thick this is. And a special mention must be made to the illustrator who has done the cover design, right? I think that's 1 minute. I just had his name here. Well, that's excellent illustration work on the cover. So another factor is that I was just checking Speaking Tiger. I was just taking the Speaking Tiger website. If you order right now, there is a 25% discount on the book. So so don't delay. After this discussion, don't hold on. Now, as she says, read more about it, because this chat show will not be there any longer. This chat show is now over. So on behalf of, well, I think this time I can say truthfully on behalf of all our viewers, Mohana, is a big thank you to you, not just for attending and giving us this time, but at the same time, really thank you for this wonderful work you have done, researching for 5 to 6 years and coming out with this book. Remarkable, absolutely remarkable. And it's not just the cuisine or the food habits you're talking about the actual chronological history of these various communities. You're talking about the people, you're talking about the eateries, you're talking about everything. So that, I think, is a much bigger canvas than just a book as a book. It was, everybody is right now thanking you, actually, talking about that, how great it was enjoying listening to Mohan. And this chat makes, and Sheila says this chat makes her learn, want to know more about, and therefore, I suppose, the book.
Yeah, right? Read my book, please.
Please read her book, and I'm sure you will not this time. And right now, as I said,
much more. We've just
much more, and and we have skipped a whole lot because we want you to read all of, and which is why I said that there's a 25% discount going on Speaking Tiger website. So rush for your book and pick up the 25% and keep it in your library. Incidentally, she has also, John Matthew answering that just now. Does it have recipes? Some selected recipes. It does have a few selected recipes.
It has a recipe of Galavati kebab in case anybody wants to.
I think John will be interested in that Galavati kebab. So that's there, John, you got it. So thank you very much, Mona, for all your time, not just today, also, the homework time we did. And we hope to keep in touch. And on behalf of Kahani Kancheti and Speaking Tiger, a very big thank you. For my viewers, please go to our website, www.kahani.com, and keep following us on our Facebook page, Kahani Tales, from where you're watching this. We'll let you know about our next program, which is coming up on the 17th of this month, where we'll be having a panel to discuss a book by my friend Arjun Ghosh. It's called 6 Years on a Dope Trail. It talks about the life in dope, which is the era of the hippies and others in the late 60s to mid 70s. Among the people who will join us, will be Thespian Abhijit Dutt, the actor, and Vivek Mukherjee, the journalist, along with Arjun, who is a veteran advertising writer. So please do come in for our 17th program. Follow us. Mona, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you
And
for
we
having,
hope
thank you for having me here.
our pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.